have a quest log. The map doesn't tell you where to go. You just wander around and try to figure things out. It's the kind of game where you probably take notes on a sheet of paper who is that's next to you the whole time, and I think that's totally fine. Not all games need quest helpers or quest logs, things like that. I will say a few times it led me into some situations where I was just wandering around and everyone's like, "Why are you at the black ship? You're not supposed to be here until you got another 30 levels." I'm like, "I don't know. I just found the black ship. I just found it." Stuff like that. People like, "Oh, I really wish you would do the side quests for the different people because they're really big." I'm like, "I haven't found any of those. I don't know where they are. I didn't know they existed." So, I had people that were like disappointed because I was like, I didn't do the quest for the robot, or I didn't do the quest for Marley, or didn't do the quest for the frog, or whatever. And I'm just like, I never found any of these. Can I speak freely at this point? Go ahead. Go ahead. I mean, yeah. So I never, why didn't you do side stuff? I did what I found. Why did you rush to end? I didn't know it was the end. I just stumbled into it. I didn't realize. Things like that. So that was very much an issue. Another thing in storytelling is it only happened once, but false sense of choice. There was a moment where the game was like, "Oh, hey, Chrono, we should help this person. What do you say?" And it goes, "Yes or no." I said no. And then she's like, "Oh, come on, you." And then he's like, da, 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 "I'm going to do it." And then you hitting no there had no effect on the game at all. So they should have just removed that. It shouldn't have been there at all. There should not have been like an illusion of choice there. It should have just said, "You're doing this. That's the story." You could have aborted the Black Omen. Aborted it? That's a choice of words. Like most Square games, once you get to the airship, it's time to hunt down all the side content. I don't know what you're talking about. I guess I haven't played other Square games. What game like this would be easier for you with chat hidden, like how Preach does with some games? I considered it, but again, my enjoyment of the game was descending, and my enjoyment of talking to chat is always high. And I didn't want to turn like chat into emote only mode just to play the game because that would have lowered my enjoyment even more. But it is true. We gotta touch on this. Chrono Trigger community, worst with spoilers I've seen in nearly 7 years streaming. And we played 110 games last year. Absolutely, hands down, it's not even close. I will say, hold on a sec. We're gonna open Paint here. Like if we've got a graph here, okay, and it's just like here, like game and spoilers. It would be like, let me get this here. It's like, here's like some games, here's some other games. Black Myth Wukong was here. That was a new all-time high. And then it's like Chrono Trigger. It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. Yeah, so that was very much a thing. We saw you going to the final dungeon without doing endgame stuff, and everyone panicked to try and save you. I feel like you you shouldn't have to do that. Like if the game lets me just accidentally wander to the end game dungeon, I don't know. I feel like that's a, now again, 1995, but I feel like that's a game design issue. Yeah. Yeah, and as far as like skip, again, I was never intentionally skipping side stuff. I never found it. I never found any of the side content. Personally, I'm definitely in the Chrono Trigger fan community, but I also know the rules, so I won't say anything. No, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Let's say 12k is only 12 attack from Megas. Let's see, she has 12k health. Yeah, Megas was doing 1k a shot. The problem was when, again, we saw it there on my last attempt. Reduced everyone's health to 1, then she did attacks on people before I got another turn. There's literally nothing I could do there. Like, even if I was like 10 times my current level, if she reduces everyone's health to 1, and then she takes another turn before I go, she kills people. There's literally nothing I could do about that. The Black Omen was the final dungeon. No, I don't know if it was or not. A lot of people in chat said that I was in like the last quarter of the game, not the final boss. So I'm not sure what was left. That was the hardest part for those of us who played it, having to hold our horse to let you figure out whether you needed help first. Well, okay. Next thing is absolutely the combat. I've played a lot of RPGs. Okay. I've played turn-based. I've played real-time. This was an abortion of both. This is absolutely the worst combat system I've ever experienced. And I would actively avoid playing more games with this combat system. I need to remember what it's called so that I can avoid it in the future. So the fact that even when I put it on very slow turns and I put it on wait, which, dude, everybody in chat, why don't you put it on wait if you hate it so much? And I'm like, it's on wait! Dude, I said that so many times. Even when it's on wait, it was still, it's like, when it's Frog's turn, you're navigating from attack down to tech, boss takes a turn. Or what is it, Marley? Not Marley, sorry. I had Ayla, her speed was so high that she could go 3 times for everybody else's 1, but we could not take advantage of that if it was on anything except auto. Also, I just noticed that the frog right here is checking out her butt. That's interesting. I guess he did used to be a man. All right, so let's see. What was it? Storytelling was kind of fun, but sorry, not fun. It was kind of fun, but it was old school. I definitely missed. Like, I was just following the grains of the story. I somehow missed. When was I supposed to rescue Chrono? Someone tell me. When was I supposed to? Because everyone, not everyone, a few people were like, "Oh, you skipped rescuing Chrono," and I'm like, "Not on purpose. I just found this. I wasn't trying to skip rescuing Chrono." Active time battle 2.0. Okay. You can go fight Lavos anytime, but if you go through the Black Omen to fight him, I think it's an easier fight. It does allow you to vary the game speed in addition to wait or no wait. You could have done the side quest except for that one and just gone to 1999 AD and just gone Lavos, my quarrel is with you. Interesting. Yeah, at the beginning of the game, the old man, at the end of time, he goes, that portal leads to the big battle. And I tried to interact with that portal, and the old man goes like, hey, come here. And I talked to him, and he had nothing to say. And I went back to the portal, and he's like, hey, come here. So I'm like, okay, I can't go through this. This is just here for decoration. Like, the times I tried to go through that portal, he prevented me and had nothing to say. So I was like, okay, it's just here for decor. Maybe it'll be like the end of the game or something. So to say that you can go through it to fight Lavos at any time is wrong, because the times I tried it, it didn't let me go through the portal, and I assumed it was just like a doodad. I assumed it wasn't actually like a real portal. So you cannot go through there at any time, just like how resume does not load the most recent save, and just like how wait does not actually stop combat. Magus tells you go to the end of time to rescue Chrono, and then you went exploring and found the Black Omen. When did Magus say that? Yeah, I missed that entirely. If he said that while I was playing, I completely missed that. I remember going to get Magus, and I had the option to fight him, and I said no when he joined the party, and chat cheered, and they were like, yeah, you hit the right button. I'm like, okay, so he's a party member now. I don't remember him mentioning Chrono. Chrono, you have to go to the fair, win a bunch of games, then get a doll of him. What? Then do stuff with the old man, gross, who gives you a way to go to the moment he died and replace him with the doll. Okay. My memories of the SNES emulator ROM with the wait arrive worked then. It sounds like the Steam version messed it up. I don't know. I went into those boss fights with 99 high potions, high ether elixir. It was when you were leaving the cape, I think. All right, let's see. Do I have anything else to say? Let's see. Resume does not load most recent save. Wait does not wait. What was the other stuff? I think that's most of it. Okay. I want to see what John. I know I missed 1,000 things. The end result, is my experience, was extremely frustrating. Let me see. Josh Ray's Chrono Trigger. Let me see what happened to him. 1 hour video. I mean, we can skim. All right. Bosses have too much hit points? No. I don't mind the bosses having a lot of hit points if it wasn't for the fact that, as long as they don't like two-shot me. Like, if they like kill you in one shot, 1 or 2 shots, then it's ridiculous. But
Chrono Trigger, a Super Nintendo RPG released in 1995, considered by many to be one of the greatest video games of all time. Read any best RPG ever list and Chrono Trigger is always there, usually taking the top spot. So in this video, I'm going to replay a game considered one of the greatest video games of all time and find problems with it.
Dude, that
so
race was so stupid. That race with the motorcycles was so dumb. Like, the whole thing didn't matter. You could literally hit no buttons until the very end and then just boost past them at the finish line, because you never got more than 5 feet apart from each other.
Because we're about to go on a time travel.
And it made you do it every time you traveled down that road.
From prehistory to the end of time itself. Created by a dream team of RPG experts, including the creators of Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest, the original artist from Dragon Ball, and musicians still working on major RPGs to this day, Chrono Trigger features mechanics way ahead of its time. Mechanics people still rave about today. You know the old joke about how JRPGs start with you saving a cat and end with you killing God? Chrono Trigger is partly responsible for that saying. People praised Zelda Breath of the Wild for its open world nature and the ability to fight Ganon whenever you felt ready. Well, Chrono Trigger not only let you take on the final boss whenever you like, but also has 14 different endings depending on when and how you do this. Remember the buggy in the airship from Final Fantasy VII, which opened up the overworld and let you explore hidden continents? Well, Chrono Trigger had that mechanic 2 years earlier. The time travel from Ocarina of Time, having 2 different versions of the overworld. How about 6 different time periods of the same world, from prehistory to the far future? Even Dark Souls and Elden Ring followed in Chrono Trigger's footsteps with hidden side quests for each playable character unlocking their ultimate weapons, completely missable areas, and the ability to kill vital NPCs and make your playthrough harder. And while not the first game to have looping replayable game modes, Chrono Trigger did allow you to take earned power from one playthrough into the next, and was the first game to use the term New Game Plus. Add to all this a heartfelt story about our search for meaning, overcoming childhood flaws, the allure of unlimited power, and the destructive desire for vengeance. All held together with a battle system still to this day considered a gold standard in gaming, and you've got one hell...
I cannot possibly fathom how this battle system is considered a gold standard.
...of an RPG. But games have advanced a lot since 1995, and the nostalgia goggles are thick and heavily tinted. And while many people know Chrono Trigger from those best RPG ever lists, not that many people have actually finished the entire game. So are we just collectively agreeing something is good because other people have told us it's good? Maybe we need specific examples of why it does or does not hold up today. So I've gone back and replayed it all. Every ending, every secret character, every hidden side quest, and with that complete replay, we can now answer the question, Chrono Trigger, was it actually any good? As always, a massive thank you to the supporters on Patreon, Twitch, and YouTube whose support allows me to make long-form, in-depth videos like this. More information on how you can support at the end. For now, let's begin. Flashing light warning. Several of the high-level magical spells flash the screen with flickers of white light. I'll mention these before they happen. First off, a quick note on pixel and sprite graphics, and I touched on this phenomenon.
One sec, I'm gonna turn my fan on. I'm gonna get comfortable because we're gonna be here enjoying Josh's melodious voice for a little bit.
In the Castlevania video, but it's worth repeating. If you played Chrono Trigger as a kid, the gameplay on screen now probably looks sharper than you remember, and this is both a blessing and a curse. Chrono Trigger released in 1995 for the SNES, and so was played on CRT monitors. Now, with sprite and pixel art, a CRT monitor actually slightly diffuses each pixel, and the colors bleed together, giving a more blended, softer image. Here's an example with Dracula's face from Castlevania. Notice how on a modern monitor, the single red pixel of the eye is defined and harsh. It almost seems out of place, while on an old monitor, that red pixel would diffuse a red tint across its neighbors and so give a soft glow effect. The same is true with waterfalls. Here's an example from Mega Man, and with depth added through implied shadows. Here's some 80s dungeon crawler images on both CRT and LCD screens. The soft blend effect of a CRT monitor actually means your mind has to fill in the blanks, and this creates both gentler curves and greater depth. So if what I'm playing doesn't look quite like what you remember, that's why. So while Chrono Trigger released in 1995, it's been re-released multiple times on the PlayStation 1 in 1999, the Nintendo DS in 2008, for both iOS and Android in 2011, and on Steam in 2018, where it's still available. The latter releases even contain bonus content like extra dungeons and more side quests and fully animated transition sequences. It went on to see a sequel called Radical Dreamers in
Oh, so those animations that we saw were not in the earlier versions.
1996, which was a Japanese text-based game which ties into a side plot, and then Chrono Cross released on the PlayStation in 1999, which itself cannibalized much of Radical Dreamers and so became the only canon sequel. A third game named Chrono Break was rumored for a while but ultimately dropped in 2003. So for this review, I'm staying classic and we'll be playing the SNES version. First off, Chrono Trigger is far shorter than most people realize. I finished the complete main storyline and all 7 extra character stories in around 20 hours. The length of the game really comes from finding...
Alright, real quick, hold on. How much time did I put into it? I played 15.6 hours.
all 14 additional endings, but it's entirely possible if you're only focusing on the main plot to finish Chrono Trigger in a long, focused weekend. So let's play. The Swinging Pendulum is an iconic opening and sets the theme of time, and the first choice we make is battle mode, active or wait, and I'll explain the differences when we look at combat later. Now we name the main character, and I'll be keeping all the names.
Please tell me the differences, Josh, as I didn't see them.
As suggested, but important to note, the main character is called Chrono, not Chrono. This isn't just because of the 5-letter naming limitation of the SNES, it's also because the story of Chrono Trigger isn't actually about Chrono as a character, it's about everyone else. And interesting fact, Chrono, just like Link from The Legend of Zelda, is a left-handed silent protagonist. In fact, his only dialogue is found in a hidden ending that I will show you later. Chrono's name is a reference to Kronos. Not Cronus, the youngest of the Titans in Greek mythology, but Cronus, the personification of time in pre-Socratic philosophy. So we open with Chrono oversleeping and his mum opening the curtains to a glorious sunny day. It's the year 1000 AD and the joyful ringing of Lean's bell can be heard, and they're celebrating with the Millennial Fair. Gameplay is top-down with 8-way movement, hold A to run, and in a lovely bit of attention to detail, you can just shut the curtains again. In fact, attention to small details like this is something we'll see Chrono Trigger do a lot. Chrono is told his inventor friend Luca is at the fair, and so we leave the house and set off, and this puts us in the overworld. Now, unlike most RPGs, you cannot get into random encounters or battles while in the overworld. This is strictly for travel. Chrono Trigger's approach to combat is actually somewhat novel in the RPG sense, as you never have to grind. The entire journey is perfectly paced that you will always be the right level for whatever challenge the story naturally takes you.
How many times do people in chat be like, oh, why don't you leave where you're at and go grind levels? You're not the right level for this. This is bull crap.
The world map is somewhat open and doesn't stop you exploring around. You've got Xenon Bridge to the south. You can either cross it in the overworld or interact with it to enter it as a location and explore around. And you can talk to every NPC, and they've always got short but useful hints about...
I was hitting for thousands when I got to the Queen Bee. Oh, you need to go get XP.
You should be heading. There's even the Royal Forest to the north full of enemies, and even though you're not meant to be here yet, the game won't stop you going here. There's a great deal of early game freedom. While on the world map, you can press select to bring up an overview map, which shows there are a lot of disconnected
I've never seen the screen. I'll be honest, I don't know, like the buttons on the controller for start and select, I don't know what those are on keyboard. All the other keys I found, those, I don't know.
That we'll reach later. And there's already some lovely color palette design going on. Houses you can interact with are green, and ones you cannot are blue. This is just a small touch, but it helps the player navigate. We head north to the Millennial Fair and talk to everyone, and this is essentially your safe trading zone. You can see the central feature of Lean's bell hanging proudly, so I walk around and then browse the menus in-game, and they're super simple with...
I thought you'd open this chest with a pendant, especially before the flying ship. I did not know the flying ship was a point of no return. I was just wondering.
Surprisingly deep customization options, including changing the background color or text display speed while in battle. Nothing groundbreaking, just a perfectly fine system. We play some of the fair games, and this bored kid says, so what if we won a war against a wizard hundreds of years ago? And this is something I really like. The history of the world is given to you through NPCs just commenting on how they feel about the current situation, and it feels natural. As we're exploring, we bump into this running girl, and as we do, she drops something, and what you do in this moment will matter. So let's just talk about this design. When you bump into the girl, she drops an object, and this draws your attention. Your eyes will go here, and as a player, you'll think, oh, that's different. And Chrono Trigger does this a lot. Whenever your attention is drawn to something graphical or mechanical, even if only for a moment, that thing matters and will be relevant later. And it's often very subtle. You might not even realize that it caught your attention until it gets brought up later and you distinctly remember it. So being a good person, I grab the pendant and give it back to her, and she introduces herself as Marl and asks to join us exploring the fair. And we don't know anything about her, but this NPC tells us the king is rather upset that his tomboy daughter keeps running off, and then adds in, he'd like to see how wild she really is. And while the game is rated kids to adults, there are some risque comments sprinkled throughout. While in a party, your companions will trail behind you, but they're purely visual and won't block you from moving. Now, while at the fair, you've got a few distractions. This young girl has lost her cat, so we find the cat and lead it back to her. Important mechanical note, unlike your companions, NPCs will block you from...
I never saw this. I never saw the cat quest.
Moving. And this is the very first floor I spot. If you stand still, sometimes an NPC will walk onto you, and when this happens, you will be stuck and unable to move until they walk off you. We join in this drink guzzling contest, just mash A to drink a lot, and I lose, and then we learn about a war against an evil magician called Magus 400 years ago, and then I eat this lunch I find lying on a table. In the corner of the fair, you can take on Gatto, a singing robot and combat tutorial. He has metal joints, and if we beat him up, we can earn 15 silver points. Now, I'll dive into combat a bit later on, but as an overview, combat doesn't enter an instanced area or graphically unique environment like Final Fantasy VII. Instead, it happens directly within the game on the screen you currently are. With the fair explored, Marl demands some candy because she is a demanding kind of girl used to getting her own way, and we finally meet inventor Luca and her dad Tobin, and they've created the main attraction of the fair, a teleporting machine. So we give it a go. Standing on the left plate, we are teleported over to the right, and Luca is super relieved that it works. Now, wanting to join in the fun, Marl asks for a turn. However, during the teleportation process, Marl's pendant begins to interfere with it, some sort of rift is opened, and Marl is thrown through. Tabin panics, and Luca is calm and collected, and this matters because it's an early sign of how memorable and focused the character personalities are. Chrono Trigger has a party size of 3, with 7 total playable characters, and each character has a very specific upbringing, desire, and most importantly, flaw. And it's these flaws which make them memorable. Perfect characters are dull, but flawed characters are relatable. And what Chrono Trigger does exceptionally well is allow the characters to maintain
Chrono's flaw that he was dead.
personal goals while being part of the team, and lets you as a player understand their goals and then understand where their flaws come from in relation to their goals. Marl, the girl we met in the market, is energetic, arrogant, and self-assured, but she's also far too demanding and often naive. Luca is an inventor, and she understands machines and systems, but she struggles to connect with people or emotions. And as we meet the rest of the cast, you'll see a flaw in everyone, and it's the character journey in spite of the flaws which is engaging to watch. As we meet more characters, we'll discuss their flaws, their desires, and their story arcs. That is, every character except Chrono. Chrono has no flaws because Chrono has no backstory and no defined future. Chrono has no opinions because he has no dialogue. Unlike, say, Cloud Strife from Final
Yeah, he's so boring.
Fantasy VII, who has a defined backstory.
I even said, like, I don't know, like 5 or 10 hours of the game, I was like, oh my god, I wish I could have a party without Chrono in it. And then when he died, I was like, oh sweet. Finally, the dream team.
Story, a specific personality all of his own, and a reason to want to change the world the game is set in, Chrono actually exists solely as a self-insert for the player. Chrono Trigger is the story of everyone else. Chrono himself, and by extension you, are simply along for the ride, because you as a player feel the desire to help the other characters to be the good guy. Chrono is simply a conduit for you to interact with the other characters as they interact with the world and their place in it. After the portal incident, Luca is sure that she recognizes Marl, but not sure where from, and while she's thinking, we grab the pendant and demand Luca activate the machine again. Wherever Marl is, we'll recreate the portal incident and go and rescue her. So the machine on, portal open, and we're treated to these trippy visuals as we are.
No, we did not demand she turn on the machine again to try again. Her and her father bullied me into it while I was saying no, 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 and then they threw me through the portal. I didn't
thrown
demand
through time
that.
and space before arriving in a forest and being attacked by monsters. So let's talk about the combat. Chrono Trigger's combat takes place on the same map. There are no random encounters. You'll often see the enemy sprites just hanging out, and when you bump into them, the fight begins. Sometimes the enemies will be hiding off screen and jump in when you trigger them, but this still isn't random because you can often predict where encounters will start by the big open spaces, or if you play before, the encounter is always in the same space. When a fight starts, your party will run to preset positions and remain there. The enemies, however, can move around. During combat, these 3 bars count down to where characters go, much like the active time battle system in the Final Fantasy games, and the enemy have the same countdown, but you can't see those bars. When it's your go, you can choose a basic attack, a technical ability, or use an item. But remember that choice at the start, active battle or wait. Surely that means when your move timer is full, the game will wait for you to make a choice. Well, not quite. If you select wait mode, the game will only freeze the enemy timer and stop them moving when you are in the technical menu or the item menu. If you're not in either of these 2 menus, the game actually continues as normal. And at first, this seems counterintuitive to what wait mode should be, but it's actually needed because of how double and triple technical abilities work. Your basic attack just hits the enemy with your weapon, and you can hit any enemy anywhere on the screen, even if you have a melee weapon. There are no environmental obstructions. But it's the technical menu where the game really shines. The tech menu also contains magic, but for now we'll focus on tech skills. A tech attack uses up a certain amount of MP or mana and always offers both more damage and more utility than your basic attack. Let's take Chrono's.
No, not always. There were many times that I would use MP and do a technical attack, and it would do less damage than my normal attack.
First technical attack, Cyclone. When you select it, you'll now select an enemy, and the enemy you're selecting is shown by the solid finger icon. But you'll notice there are other flashing finger icons on other enemies. This is because Cyclone doesn't just hit one enemy, it hits in a circular area centered on an enemy of your choice. And those flashing icons are showing what falls within the circle if you target a specific enemy as the center. Technical attacks can be single target, or a circle centered on a specific enemy, sometimes a circle centered on the
Enemies can have resistances? Of course. But what I'm saying is that statement is wrong, saying that techniques always do more damage. That's just not correct.
Character, a horizontal line across the screen, a straight line from your character outwards, or every enemy on the screen. And this is where the enemy's moving matters. If you're in battle and your timer is ready, you don't need to perform an attack or a technical ability instantly. Sometimes it's tactical to wait and see if the enemy sprites all move into a better position. So then a technical can hit more of them. This is why even on wait mode, the game only waits when you're in the tech or item menu. But the true brilliance of Chrono Trigger's combat system lies in how you can combine technicals from multiple characters into double or triple attacks. For example, Chrono has Cyclone, a damaging circular spin, and Marl knows Aura, a single target heal. But if you wait for both character time bars to fill up and be ready, the tech menu of either of those characters will now have a double tech section containing Aura Whirl, which combines their turns and techs into a party-wide heal. Using a double tech counts as both characters' turns and will take MP from both characters equal to whatever base tech they are using for the combination. And late in the game with specific party builds, you unlock triple techs which do the most damage by a substantial margin. Magic, which is something you unlock later, is also found within the tech menu and counts as a tech attack, but usually contains added elemental damage, which each enemy in the game is either weak to, taking double damage, indifferent to, or resistant to and heals from. Magic itself is extremely simple, and each elemental attack comes in just 2 versions, 1 and 2, Lightning 1 and Lightning 2, Ice 1 and Ice 2. Version 1 of any magic is single target, and version 2 is always multi-target, and you unlock version 2 at higher levels. This is nothing complicated. Now, each character within Chrono Trigger is attuned to a single magical element, and each element has utility in specific battles. We'll see this later. When you finish a battle, you gain both experience, which increases your overall level, and tech points. These points are added up to unlocking the next technical attack or magic spell, and you can see your next tech and how many points you are from it in the tech menu of any character. Combining both tech and magic under the blanket term tech, each individual character will learn 8 individual technical attacks, and of the 7 playable characters, 6 of them have double techs which combine.
Hold on a sec. The Chrono learn. Let's see. I got to Frenzy. After that, he learns Luminaire. Attacks all enemies with holy light. Marl after, let's see, I think we got to haste. She gets arise. She gets, oh, Marl's last skill is revive and fully heal an ally. Luca, so Marl never earns an AoE heal on her own. So the frog gets an AoE heal without having to do a combo. Marl never gets an AoE heal unless she's comboing, but she does get a revive someone with full health. Luca, damage, protect. Okay.
Which combine with each other. The seventh is a solo-focused character who's not really a team player. Those 6 characters have 3 double techs with
Oh my god.
every other character for a total of 45 double techs in the game, and then there are 10 possible triple techs while Chrono is in the party, and 5 triple techs when he's not. Because while Chrono is the player's self-insert, he's not actually the protagonist of the story. This is a substantial amount of tech attacks, giving a huge amount of variety, while also being a realistic amount that a player could legitimately experience. It's not overwhelming. This double and triple tech system doesn't just apply to the player either, enemies can use it too, and often bosses or group battles will see you on the receiving end of powerful double or triple attacks, meaning taking out key enemies in fights isn't just about killing the healer, it's often about removing the linchpin of a technical ability. The tech system also means you don't want to take your 3 individual strongest characters, you want to take a team with utility. And often, the whole ends up greater than the sum of its parts. Indeed, taking the character with no dual techs despite their individual strength is often a hindrance to your overall party's power. Some enemies in battle have retaliation mechanics. They will instantly hit you back out of sequence as soon as they are damaged. And later in the game, you can get an accessory that lets you do the same. And this means some enemies you are discouraged from attacking until you can kill them in one hit. Or you're cautious about using multi-target attacks because it's very easy to accidentally chain yourself into taking multiple retaliation damage attacks and not getting a chance to heal in between. I've always said that depth is better than complexity. Anyone can make something complicated, just add way too many variables and overwhelm the player, but it takes a lot of skill to create something simple and understandable with depth. And all this means combat encounters in Chrono Trigger are closer to puzzles than battles, with regular enemies being solved by just attacking and not wasting your MP, and elites and bosses needing...
Yeah, and again, I got no problem with the puzzle thing. The problem is when you fail on the puzzle and do something wrong, and then you have to replay 20 minutes. That's where I had an issue. Like, both because of the save points and also because of the speed of combat. If you want to turn up combat speed, you have to use auto, because that is both the speed up button and the automatic combat button.
More refined tactical approach of specific techs. Finding a team you like in Chrono Trigger is all about finding the double and triple techs that you feel comfortable with. It's about choice and preference, and it's this choice that ties into one of the game's greatest strengths. It's pacing. You can beat the game with almost any party without a guide. Now, certain bosses will of course encourage you to use certain strategies, and you're always rewarded for having a healer, but you don't need a wiki open to beat this game. And perhaps the greatest difference between Chrono Trigger and almost any other RPG is how you don't need to grind in Chrono Trigger at all. If you just follow the main storyline and every fight that you will naturally
Nope. It's not. It's for the first half of the game. I had so many people in chat that were bragging about how in this game you don't have to grind. You don't have to grind. It's just you'll naturally be the right level at the right time. The second half of the time I was playing, Muck, why are you here? This is way too high a level. You need to go grind some levels. That's all I was hearing for the last, 9 hours.
Trigger as you follow it, you'll be perfectly leveled for every boss as you encounter them. Chrono Trigger's pacing plays more like a pure story game. In fact, in the 20 hours it took me to beat the game, only about 20 minutes was spent grinding, and that was just to gain money to afford copies of a special armor, which would make a secret boss easier. You can also run away from non-boss fights by holding both shoulder buttons, but I never had to use this feature at all. The pacing is just so smooth. The early to mid...
You can run away from boss fights. What the... Yeah, that would have been good to know. I was just using Alt F4 to run away from boss fights and then reloading the game. Did he say non-boss? Did he say non-bosses?
And combat and boss fights by holding both. Gain money to afford copies of a special armor, which would make a secret boss easier. You can also run away from non-boss fights by holding both shoulder buttons, but I never had to use this feature at all. The pacing is just so smooth. The early to mid-game combat is all about damage and healing, and the late-game pushes into status effects like sleep, poison, confusion, or chaos. And passing these late-game fights is about equipping the armors or using the spells designed to counter these effects. You need a party with the correct spells to weaken the enemy for basic attacks to do much, and then you've got a few gimmick fights where you attack the scenery instead of the boss, but overall, the combat system is super easy to grasp, with the double and triple tech combinations giving it a surprising amount of depth. Combine this with exceptional pacing, every fight feels like progress through a story, not simply increasing a number. But what about the characters you don't include in your team who aren't getting experience? Well, they actually still do get experience and level at pace with you, even if they're not in the party. So when you swap out team members, you're not suddenly using a weaker team, you're just using a different, equally capable team, so you're never stuck just using the guys that you've power leveled. We battle through the forest and find a power glove in a chest, so let's have a quick look at...
I will say, I wish Octopath Traveler had that. When we played Octopath, having to go just like I had to grind hours of levels for people that weren't in my main party off stream because they fell like 30 levels behind.
The equipment. Characters have 4 equipable item slots: weapon, helmet, body armor, and accessory, and of these, only the equipped weapon will have any in-game visual effect and only during combat, with swords having a different blade color and some weapons having a different shape, attack animation, or attack sound effect. Weapons increase your attack power, and each character can only use one specific type of weapon. You cannot equip another character's weapon. Even though 2 characters use swords, they both use different types of swords. Helmet and body armors increase your defense. Male characters can wear metal armor, and female characters can wear robes. And accessories increase most stats or have unique supporting effects like reducing the MP cost of techs, or increasing critical hit rate, or preventing certain status effects. And some accessories combine with certain weapons, but most can be equipped by anyone. This system again is focusing on depth over complexity. 4 slots is pretty easy to understand, but some armor has high base defense but no elemental resistance, while other armor has high elemental resistance and low base defense, or even absorption to a specific element, meaning you'll be healed from that damage and not harmed. This means while the main storyline can be completed by just focusing on really high defense, the optional hidden side bosses need more situational setups with elemental absorption or status resistance. In fact,